Engaging the community since 1970. This is WIS Awareness.
Good morning and thank you for joining us for Awareness. I'm your host, Megan Norman. With just 2 days until we find out who will become the 45th President of the United States, the presidential race has been plagued by scandal and controversy and has stayed in the national headlines. But there are races right here in the Midlands that are also on the minds of local voters. For instance, who will be the voice for Senate District 17? In that race, Republican Mark Palmer and Democrat Mike Fanning. Fanning, who defeated incumbent Creighton Coleman in June, is named in a SLED investigation that claims he was sexually inappropriate with a student back in 1993. At the time, he was a high school teacher in Hampton County. No charges have been filed at this time. And a highly contested race in Richland County, 11 candidates vying for 3 spots on the school board for Richland District 2. Anthony Bracey, Lindsay Augustini, Shelley Williams, James Shadd, Keith Powell, James Mobley, Bill McCracken, Evangelina Hemphill, Kay Harvey, incumbent Monica Elkins, and Henry Counts. One of the long-serving board members of Richland School District 2 is not seeking re-election. She has her eye on Senate seat for District 22. Republican Susan Brill is facing off against Democrat Mia McLeod, who is a current state representative. This District 22 Senate seat is open with Senator Joel Lowry stepping down. Thank you both so much for joining me this morning.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Now, I want to start with some ads that are currently on our air. There are several sets paid for by the South Carolina Senate and Republican and Democratic caucuses, and they both target both of you respectively. I want to play the first one, and this one is by the Republican caucus on Mia McLeod's attendance record.
Have you seen State Representative Mia McLeod? Has anybody? Mia McLeod shows up for work less than half the time. Mia's MIA. Yep, she's MIA, missing 40 of 64 attendance votes last year alone. And she's running for state senate. Promote someone who doesn't show up for work? If we could find her, we'd tell her that's a bad idea. Mia McLeod, MIA.
And now, Susan, I'll ask you this first question. I know this ad paid for by the Republican Senate caucus.
Exactly. That's not done by my campaign.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you support the criticisms of your challenger?
I think it's a concern. Maybe she can answer to why she, missed more than half of her attendances from 2015 through 2016. In my 10 years serving on the Richland District School Board, I only missed 3 or 4 meetings.
Okay.
And so it had to really be critical for me to miss a meeting.
So you're saying that even though you did not pay for that, you do support the language that's in it. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay. And Mia, would you respond to that and to your record?
Thank you. I appreciate the question because I want viewers to see and know and hear the truth from me. All of it can be fact checked. The reality is I missed 2 days in 2 years at the State House. That was double, triple checked with our clerk, our House Accounting Department, and it just goes to show the length at which, or to which, my opponent and her wealthy Republican caucus backers are willing to go. I mean, they've been lying and, putting negative ads out there for weeks now. And my constituents and the people of House District 79, and certainly I hope the people of Senate District 22 will know the truth, because all of that information can be fact checked, and I encourage them to do that.
All right, well, let's take a look at another ad, this one by the Democratic caucus. Let's take a listen to that one. This is regarding the Trump-like tactics.
We've seen it before. Now it's Republican Susan Brill using Trump-like tactics to smear Democrat Mia McLeod. But like Trump, Susan Brill is hiding a history of bad decisions. Brill says she'll fix government ethics, but she supported hiring a convicted thief for a county position. We need government accountability. But Brill is accused of violating a state open meeting law to negotiate with a developer in private, smearing opponents to hide her record. Republican Susan Brill took a page right out of the Trump playbook.
Okay, so do you agree with the content in this ad?
I certainly agree with the tactics that Ms. Brill has been using from day one against me.
Specifically, what kind of tactics are you
The negative ads. The negative ads. I mean, she certainly should have a record that she can run on. I'm not sure why she has to malign me and my character in the process. I've never experienced this type of negativity and hatred, and I can only, you know, believe what I see, and that is straight out of Donald Trump's handbook.
Okay, so you align her then with Donald Trump, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, I do.
And Susan, what do you say to that?
Well, frankly, I've never met Mr. Trump, and I've never met Hillary Clinton, and I'm not running, you know, for national office. I'm not running for president, and I'm not supporting, you know, those people.
So you do not support Donald Trump?
My candidate for Republican primary did not make it. And so I'm telling people this race has nothing to do with Washington and the presidential race. The important thing right now and here is what's happening in Senate District 22, and that is the only office I'm seeking. And I'm telling folks, you're free to vote for anyone you would like to. And my candidate didn't make it. And so that's all I have to say about that. And the other thing is, when I was on county council, the only person that we can hire is the county administrator and then the clerk of council. So it's impossible for her to have fabricated that we hired someone, because we don't hire. And the same is true with Richland too. And then meeting with a developer, I mean, those are things that we do, and we don't hire. It takes the agreement of the entire council or the entire school board. So one person cannot make one decision. So it's all fabricated, and it's all erroneous, because I never have had that kind of power.
Let me ask you this, going back to the Trump comment with her aligning you with that, do you think that is going to negatively impact your campaign?
I think people that know me and know that I'm a moderate Republican, and I am proud of my bipartisan support, know that I care about the issues and I care about people. I have 17 years of constituent service, 17 years of taking care of the people that call me. I answer them. If they don't have water pressure in the summit, we meet with the city, we come out and we get done what needs to be done. Constituents were concerned about the village at Sandhills encroaching on their neighborhoods. After many meetings, things that are not glamorous and don't make the news, we had an agreement with the village at Sandhills so that the neighbors don't feel like the development is encroaching on their privacy. These are things that I have been doing for years. People call me and I respond. I call them back. It's called constituent service. It's 17 years of helping people. And the people that know me, whether they're Democrats, Independents, Republicans, know that I will be there for them regardless of their political affiliation.
Okay, the final
question.
For me,
it's
and then
not about parties.
We have to go to break, but quickly, do you think the negative ads that we just showcased, there are 2 others that are circulating on our air and others, do you think those are going to negatively impact both campaigns?
I don't think so, not one iota.
Well, her hope obviously is, because they've been attacking me on your station and other stations for weeks now. I just hope that we can get to a point at some point, it's doubtful now, in this race where we have the ability to run on our own records and our own merits. I've been trying to do that. I have had to defend against some of her negative attacks, but it's so disheartening. I mean, we see the political rhetoric and the divisiveness that is caused by it at the national level, but certainly it has found its way to South Carolina through Ms. Brill's campaign, through the Republican caucus, and I hope that that will not continue.
Well, we're going to continue this conversation when we come back. The candidates stick around and we talk about some of the issues that you care about. Stay with us. Thank you for joining us for Awareness. We're going to continue our conversation with our 2 candidates for South Carolina Senate District 22. Then when we left off in our first segment, we were talking about negative ads, but we know our state really needs unity and not division, especially with the year that we had with the shooting at Mother Emanuel, with the Confederate flag debate, with the flood, and now we're coming into 2 trials, 2 really high-profile trials of Dylan Roof and Michael Slager. Positioning ourselves with that in mind, how do you both want to work together, both sides of the aisle, to create unity in the State House? Susan, we'll start with you.
Well, you know, I would be honored to serve on the Senate Education Committee. Proud of my endorsement by the state newspaper and also by Superintendent of Education Molly Spearman. And I feel that my background in education and working across the aisle, I think that I would be, people have always described me as a bridge between, you know, people that have one idea, have the other, and then kind of working on compromise. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I get along with everybody, and I certainly try to do that. And I think people appreciate that. You know, just sort of a person that knows how to get ideas together. I respect my opponents. I respect people that disagree with me. And the great thing about 17 years in public service is I can pick up the phone and call colleagues from years ago, and they're there for me and give me advice. And you know, it doesn't matter what party you're in because, you know, I'm a moderate. I care about everybody.
And that's what the state newspaper talked about in its endorsement of you. And Mia, they had said that they admire your tenacity, but think that you may be a little too outspoken and too controversial at times. But talk about what you want to do in terms of unifying the state.
I want to continue to do what I've already been doing, and that is educating, enlightening, and engaging my constituents. I fight really hard for the people that I represent. I certainly will never apologize for that because that's why they've elected me. But I have had town halls and community forums on race relations and diversity. I think you were a part of some of those, on domestic violence and teen dating violence. Because I believe it's important. Those are the issues that really impact us a great deal here in Richland County. And the people that I serve are grateful that I do care enough to engage them and to keep them informed. And certainly, you know, I don't have the endorsement of the state, but in my opinion, the fact that the state recognized that, hey, I understand the issues and I'm able to better explain them than my opponent. I fight for the people that I represent, and, you know, I'm outspoken. Those are the only endorsements that I need. And I do have others that I'm extremely proud of: the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce, Conservation Voters of South Carolina, South Carolina Equality, the South Carolina Education Association. So my role as a parent and as a community leader, and the only current delegation member who has a child in Richland School District 2 in the public schools, you know, that is something that I'm equally proud of because it shows that I have been engaged on multiple levels, and I'll continue to do that.
I want to now talk about Medicaid expansion.
Sure.
Where do both of you stand on that issue? There was a White House report that came out last year that said if Medicaid was expanded here in South Carolina, it would help about 200, it would save about 200 lives in our state. Where do you stand on that issue?
So I'm absolutely in favor of that. I think that's a good idea. I hope we can find the funding. You know, that's a concern. I know states like Arkansas are looking at different models. So it's a cost thing, but if we can find the funding, absolutely.
And Mia?
Well, of course I'm in favor of Medicaid expansion, and I have been for the 6 years that I've served in the House. I hope that the governor's position on it will soften. There are a number of Republican-controlled states who have seen the wisdom in expanding Medicaid, and I'm talking about true Medicaid expansion, not what my opponent referred to when we had our debate, which is an alternate version of what we call Medicaid expansion in South Carolina.
So where's your difference then on the expansion? What
I'm
is she
not sure
referring
what
to?
she's talking about.
Well, you referenced it when we had our debate last Monday. You said that there are other ways, and I know that there have been other proposals made by Republicans that are similar but not the same as true Medicaid expansion. So I can't really speak to what her plan, the plan that she referred to is, but she did refer to one during our debate.
Okay, well, let's move on to roads. Crumbling infrastructure. What is your plan for how we fix South Carolina roads?
Well, I've been very open, and you know, they say that's unusual for a Republican, but we have not raised our gasoline tax since 1987. And so we have one of the lowest taxes in the country. We were having dinner next to a truck driver, and I said to him, "Where do you stop for gas?" He said, "South Carolina, of course." And so, you know, that's a problem. And I think it's something that when tourists come and we have visitors, they can help us, you know, get the revenue so we can improve our roads and our bridges. We're not a third world country, and we're not Romania. And you can feel the difference. When you drive into Georgia, your wheel doesn't shake. You go into North Carolina, you can tell the difference. So I think it's something that we need to address. And everywhere I go, everybody I talk to agrees with that.
All right, and Mia?
Our roads and infrastructure were crumbling even before the floods, the catastrophic floods of last year. And, for us to not do something meaningful and sustainable at this point is unconscionable. I can't imagine that we won't continue to work together, and I've done that. I've worked with Republicans and Democrats to try and bring a meaningful solution to the table as it relates to roads, of course, and DOT reform. But I have to say, I've yet to get a call from a constituent who has a concern about DOT. Not that we don't need to reform DOT, we do. But the most acute need is to fix our roads and bridges. And I don't think we have a choice. I think that increasing our gas tax, we have one of the lowest gas taxes in the country, I think second only to Alaska. That has to change. And we do need to look at other diverse funding sources, but certainly increasing the gas tax would go a long way towards some relief for South Carolina drivers.
Mia McLeod, Susan Brill, thank you so much for being with us and having this conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Megan. Always a pleasure to be here.
When Awareness returns, our panel of community leaders and experts reflect on this election season and what they're expecting from the presidential candidates in the final days leading up to November 8th. Stay with us. Welcome back to Awareness. We are finally almost to Election Day. 2 days to go in what has been a contentious, controversial, and cutthroat race to the White House. What impact has the race had on voters? And what can the presidential candidates do in the 11th hour to get your vote? Joining us, we have a panel of community leaders and experts with us. We have Joel Sawyer, a Republican consultant, Henry Baskins, the executive director of the Greater Columbia Community Relations Council, Sam Johnson and Antoine Seawright, two political strategists. Thank you all, I should say, for being with me this morning. Sure. What has been the most surprising thing to you to see, to witness, to read about during this election season? I know there are probably many things. Joel, I'll start with you.
Pretty much anything with Donald Trump's name on it. Look, we're in a very tight election right now, and both parties have nominated someone who is completely unacceptable to nearly half the country. It's a shame that we're in a race this tight right now with candidates who are so very different from one another, and it's a shame that both parties didn't seem to grow the tent a little bit and pick somebody who would be more acceptable to a wider swath of people.
Do you think a lot of the negativity and the controversy has turned a lot of the voters off?
I believe so. I think people are really sick of this political season. They're ready for it to be over. Some still don't know how they're going to vote, and maybe it's just a coin toss because it's been ugly from both sides. And I believe that the voters have to be educated enough to cut through all of the negativity and find someone who's going to be good for this country.
Now, what can the candidates do, if anything, in the last couple of days leading up to Election Day?
I think for Trump, he has to look at the tenor of his conversation, try to be someone who's going to be an electable candidate, someone that folks can get behind and support. I think the Republican Party has tried to provide opportunities, you look at across the leadership, for him to be that candidate. So I think he has to embrace that. He has to do what at times he's done that during some of the debates. So I think he has to try to kind of channel that inner self a little bit. And then for Hillary, I think she has to acknowledge her shortcomings and try to show why she is the better candidate.
And Antoine, we know that you are a Hillary supporter.
Absolutely.
What does she need to do?
I think she has to do what Hillary Clinton has been doing and talk about the issues and remind people this race is about two things, whether you're fit and qualified or whether you're not. She is the most qualified person to ever run for this office in the history of this country. She knows that. The American people know that. It's about reminding her. But the most important thing she has to do is turn out her base of voters and turn out the people, Democrats and Republicans, who said Donald Trump is unfit to be commander-in-chief of this country.
And Joel, you had said 2 unfit candidates, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, I presume you're referring to.
Well, I said unacceptable candidates. You know, I think that, and this illustrates the importance of getting involved much earlier in the process. You know, at best, about 25% of people show up to vote in partisan primaries. If you're not satisfied with the choices you have in November, it's your own fault for not getting involved earlier. You've got to be involved early in the primary process, or you end up with candidates who only appeal to the most extreme elements in either party. So I think that you know, part of the obligation is on voters to get involved early in the process and make their voices heard in these primaries rather than waiting until November.
Megan, here's the thing. This is the most consequential election of our lifetime. You can say what you want about Secretary Clinton. You can say what you want about Mr. Trump, Joe's candidate. This is the most consequential election of my lifetime. And at 31, I can say this is probably the most important election of my lifetime. We have decisions to make about not just for 4 or 8 years, but for the next 30, 40 years, because the next president will have to appoint to that Supreme Court. This is serious business. You can say what you want about the candidates, but we have to make real decisions about the future of this country.
And we only have a couple of days before you all have to be out at the polls and voice your opinion, exercise your right. I want to have you all back after the election so we can do a post-election wrap-up.
A Hillary victory election wrap-up.
We'll see. We'll have to wait and see after Tuesday. Thank you all for being with us.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with the final thought. No matter which candidate you support, you have a right and an obligation to get out to the polls and voice your opinion. If you want change in this country or in your district, you have to be a part of the process. Connect with us on our WIS Awareness Facebook page and let us know what you think about this election cycle. I'd like to thank all of our guests this morning. Until next time, I'm Megan Norman. This is Awareness.